Red Fort blasts have evoked some common emotions in all of us: shock, grief, and disbelief. Disbelief, as most of us are unable to understand how could highly educated doctors who have taken an oath to save lives plot and kill people in cold blood. What made a doctor with a seemingly happy extended family be willing to kill himself and become a suicide bomber? In our special show today, we take a deep dive into the psyche of a suicide bomber. What can possibly convince a rational mind to overlook self-preservation and become an instrument of terror? The story of the unraveling of the plot begins in October. It was October 18th, a night etched into the silence of a peaceful village in Jammu and Kashmir. Just past 11 p.m., the calm is shattered. There is a knock on the door of a house. It is a team of police officers from Jammu and Kashmir. In modest house in the village of Shopian, people are sound asleep, unaware of the storm about to unfold. A woman opens the door, and moments later, the police asked if Irfan Ahmed was at home. Irfan Ahmed Wage, also known as Mufti Irfan Ahmed, was indeed sleeping at that time. The police woke him up and took him into custody, driving him away to the police station. At just 24 years old, Irfan Ahmed was the imam at a mosque in Nagaon near Srinagar, commonly called the Mufti of the area. Despite his role as a religious teacher, his education was limited. He had studied only up to the 3rd grade before pursuing religious studies and eventually traveling to Deoband to become a mufti. His background was modest, but what followed would reveal a disturbing truth. Within 24 hours, on October 19th, a poster appeared outside the mosque in Nagaon, where Mufti Irfan Ahmed offered prayers. In the darkness of that night, someone had pasted up a notice filled with inflammatory accusation against India and its forces, laying the groundwork for a larger investigation. As the police interrogated Mufti Irfan Ahmed, more names surfaced: Arif Nisar Dar, Yasir ul Ashraf, and Maqsood Ahmed Dar, neighbors from the village of Shopian. Slowly, the picture began to clarify: a module, a network with apparently sinister aims. But how did a man with only a 3rd grade education, who later became a religious scholar, get involved in such complex and dangerous schemes? That was just the beginning of the story. It was not just radicalization of 1 or 2 men that was achieved by this third-pass mufti. He managed to create a suicide bomber, Dr. Umar Nabi, a man so radicalized that he was instrumental in radicalizing more doctors. He was also grooming more suicide bombers for their ultimate mission of mayhem on December 6th, a revenge for the demolition of Babri Masjid.
The motivation does not require any degree of education, and even the less educated people or normally educated people can motivate others, maybe elder to them or maybe more educated to them. This motivation requires only a practice of speech and how they can convince the people. This is the quality which requires for motivational.
Further investigations reveal that Mufti Irfan Ahmed had connections beyond Kashmir. One notable link was Dr. Muzammil, a doctor he had met at a hospital in Srinagar during a visit. Over time, their relationship deepened, and Dr. Muzammil, along with other medical professionals, Dr. Adil, Dr. Shaheen, and Dr. Umar, became part of a broader network. It was Mufti Irfan Ahmed who, through his acquaintance and their acquaintance, started weaving a dangerous web. Meanwhile, in Faridabad, some 800 kilometers away, a key figure emerged: Maulana Ishtiyaq, associated with Al-Falah University, where Dr. Muzammil and others worked. His house in Dhauj, Faridabad, would become a critical link. It was here that over 350 kilograms of ammonium nitrate was eventually recovered, an explosive ingredient carefully stockpiled over months. From July to November, this network meticulously bought small quantities of ammonium nitrate from shops across Faridabad and Gurugram and knew just a few kilograms at a time to avoid suspicion. They even rented a house from Maulana Ishtiyaq, using it as a storage point for their sinister stockpile. Over 4 months, they accumulated nearly 3,000 kilograms of explosives and other chemicals, yet, astonishingly, the authorities remained completely unaware of the scale and intentions behind these preparations. The plot extended deeper. The masterminds, Mufti Irfan Ahmed and Maulana Ishtiaq, were actively working to radicalize individuals, likely utilizing religious influence to further their aims. And behind the scenes, there were links to terrorist organizations, most notably Jaish-e-Mohammad, raising alarms about what their plans might have been. And then on November 9th, as Jammu and Kashmir police raided the house of Maulana Ishtiaq, they seized over 2,900 kilograms of ammonium nitrate and other chemicals prepared and stored over months, ready to use, and the full scale of this module was laid bare. A bomb-making operation that could have unleashed destruction in the heart of India. In the aftermath, a link was established to a planned attack at the Red Fort in Delhi. Dr. Muzammil and Dr. Adil admitted to planning the bomb, but insisted that the target was not yet chosen and their operations were limited to the creation and procurement of materials. Their confession revealed yet another chilling layer, a conspiracy that spanned months with the intention of executing an attack at a politically and symbolically significant site using radicalized suicide bombers and even drones. So what could have pushed a working doctor like Umar Nabi to become a suicide bomber? By all accounts, he was not a great doctor, nor was he a very devoted professional, but still, he was educated and one would assume rational. So what made him want to blow himself up? For this, let's try and understand the psychology of a suicide bomber based on leading academic research. Unlike common stereotypes, studies consistently show that suicide bombers are not mentally ill, psychopathic, or impulsively suicidal. Instead, several overlapping psychological, social, and ideological forces shape their mindset. Here is a breakdown using analysis from major experts. Firstly, why do we say they are not psychopaths? Well, this is according to Dr. Ariel Merari, an Israeli psychologist and terrorism researcher. Merari conducted direct psychological assessments of would-be suicide bombers, those who were caught alive. He found suicide bombers generally do not display psychopathy, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or other major psychiatric disorders. They tend to be emotionally stable with normal IQ and no clinical suicidal tendencies. Those who refused suicide mission did show more anxiety, dependency, and other traits, which suggests bomber selection is very deliberate. So what's the conclusion? Suicide bombers are usually psychologically normal people, shaped by an abnormal environment and ideology.
Suicidal bombers are not insane. They are mentally not ill. They think about what is correct, what is not correct. And they also think that while doing suicide, committing suicide in any terrorist activities or for some other reason, they think that they are doing for religion. That's the only motive in their mind. It has been indoctrined by their motivators.
Now let's understand what Dr. Scott Atran, an anthropologist in University of Michigan and Oxford, says how group dynamics and obedience completely override individual psychology. His conclusions come from field interviews with jihadist recruits. He argues suicide attacks are rooted in group identity, not personal pathology. Recruits undergo a process he calls devoted actor formation, total commitment to an ideology and group. Strong bonds within the militant groups override self-preservation. Basically, group cohesion plus ideology can reshape self-concept so profoundly that dying feels like fulfilling a meaningful role. Another key element is identity crisis, humiliation, and the search for meaning. Dr. Jerrold Post, a psychiatrist and founder of CIA's Center for Analysis of Personality and Political Behavior, believed that suicide bombers often experience identity fractures caused by personal, social, or political humiliation. And to such an individual, the extremist groups offer a new identity, sense of belonging, mission larger than oneself, and a belief that martyrdom transforms shame into honor. Thus, the bomber's psyche is shaped by an emotional need to belong and overcome perceived humiliation. The factors that drove Dr. Umar Nabi failed to work for another intended suicide bomber in the same module. This man refused to kill himself or become a supposed martyr. He called it a sin. 22-year-old political science student Jasir Bilal was detained by Jammu and Kashmir police and sent to NIA custody by the court. Jasir refused to die for his cause, despite repeated attempts of radicalization by Dr. Umar. In fact, if you observe the video of Umar Nabi, where he talks about suicide bombing, it's clear that he's trying to sell the idea to some non-believer. While Jasir may have lived, his actions led his father, a dry fruit seller Bilal, to die by suicide. He was reportedly called in for questioning after his son's detention. Bilal poured kerosene over himself and eventually died of burn injuries. The incident occurred after Jasir Bilal and his uncle, Naveed Wani, were detained by the police for questioning in connection with the Delhi Red Fort car blast and the related terror module. Arrested doctors revealed in interrogation that Jasir Bilal was being radicalized for suicide bombing since 2023 by Dr. Umar. But when, in 2025, he was asked to carry out the attack, he refused, saying that suicide is sin in Islam. Jasir encountered the terror module at a mosque in Kulgam in October 2023. He was taken to a rented accommodation near Al-Falah University in Faridabad in Haryana, where Dr. Umar Nabi spent several months intensely brainwashing him to carry out a suicide attack. The plan fell apart in April 2025 when Jasir backed out. He cited two primary reasons for his refusal: his poor financial condition and, crucially, his belief that suicide was forbidden in Islam. Other members of the module initially wanted him to serve as an overground worker or a OGW, but Dr. Umar insisted on a suicide bomber. Following Jasir's refusal, Dr. Umar is believed to have become the suicide bomber himself, driving an explosive-laden car that detonated near the Red Fort in Delhi on November 10th, killing 13 people. DNA samples from the human remains in the car matched those in Dr. Umar's mother, confirming his identity as the bomber. Jasir's detention and interrogation, which occurred after the arrest of other co-accused doctors, were instrumental in helping the Srinagar police unravel the entire interstate terror network linked to the banned Jaish-e-Mohammad. Dr. Umar's failure also shows how even a highly radicalized mind of an educated doctor was unable to convince a pliant suicide bombing candidate like Jasir. Traditionally, the profile of a typical suicide bomber was that they were almost always male, would be young, ranging in age from 16 to 28, would come from poor backgrounds and have limited education. However, this is a stereotype which has struggled to fit suicide terrorists more and more in recent years globally. And now in India also, the stereotype has been blown to smithereens by the white-collar terror module. Do tell us what you think about this show and keep watching India Today.